All right. Welcome to another edition of the podcast that we don't have a clue what the name is. So we're just here to talk about whatever, because I don't even know what we've decided to do is just draw topics out of a hat. We got a list of topics. So if you have a topic, we'll throw it in the hat. So just send it in, let us know, and we'll see if it comes out. But today's is what? You guys going to tell me what we're talking about?
He decided.
You decided.
Oh,
I decided on something else. We're doing pressure because mine weren't good enough.
Yours weren't good.
Pressure as far as, I think.
Deer pressure. Or any animal?
Preferably deer.
Okay.
With trail cameras, tree stands, like how much you're, like when you're hanging stands, stuff like that.
And then how much you're checking trail cameras during the summer.
Why are you looking at me?
Hey, no, I think during the summer during the summer and during the season, it doesn't change.
No, it doesn't. But I do think that
because we all three have different views on this, I think.
Well, we'll see.
He's already getting defensive, I can tell.
No, it's okay. I'll give you my opinion. I don't have one problem with telling you my opinion.
He's got a mule for sale that's got like 47,000 miles on it, and it hasn't gone 4 miles past his house. Just does his loop.
Talk. We'll see who everyone agrees with.
Well, that's the great thing about your trail camera pictures is all of yours are a time lapse because you got a picture of them every single day.
No, not every day. Well, yeah, hopefully if they stand in front of the camera every day.
Yep. Okay. So,
unfortunately, I do think most people are going to agree with him.
On which part? I don't think
Wait,
so.
no, they're not going to agree with him at all. They're going to agree with yours, I think.
Oh, no.
Well, I have levels to it. So Dad is notorious for checking trail cameras a lot. You are.
Well, hold on. Wait a minute. You're going to have to qualify what is a lot. I got a lot of trail cameras to check. That's 100% true. How many trail cameras do you check a year?
Close to your property.
Okay.
During the summer, you probably check, and when I say close, like 3 miles or less, you're probably checking 2 to 3 times a week.
No, that's not true.
What?
Not true.
Pull up your folders.
I will. Okay.
I call BS right now.
See, here's the whole thing that you
don't have to get defensive about it. It's okay.
I'm pulling up.
The first step is admitting the problem.
Okay, so 524, 68, 623.
That's just the ones you say. Oh, gee, that isn't within a mile of your house.
You said within 3 miles.
Go. Yeah,
that is exactly what you said.
Just go to the north field of your house.
6, 8, No.
Yeah.
Okay, now you're talking within 300 yards of my house.
Oh, so you're going to the max distance.
That's fine. So how often do you check that one?
I probably check that every 4 or 5 days. Yeah, without a doubt. Why? Because it's there, and there's a feeder there, and they're eating everything out of the feeder. So when the feeder gets empty, I take them new stuff. And I could have filmed the deer that never left the feeder yesterday.
I don't know why you're getting so defensive.
Because I think it's funny that you guys don't lift a finger to help with any of the trail cameras.
I don't hunt your land, so I do my own stuff.
Sometimes you do.
No, I do not.
So
I don't touch.
You don't touch the trail camera. I got to check trail cameras every day in order to get back to them
from your house.
What?
Those ones are only 300 yards from your house.
Right.
So that's not that big a deal for you, right?
Right.
That's like 45 minutes from my house.
Okay, but I also do other things where I'm trying to do some research and stuff, and I got them on video. So when they're on video, you got to check them because what's going to happen to them? You wouldn't know the answer to that.
Because you want them on video all the time. I don't want them on video all the time.
I want them on video. We need them on video for other stuff we're doing.
Good Lord. Maybe this was a bad decision.
No, it's a great decision. I think it's awesome. I think it's a perfect topic.
Nobody's dissing on you for it.
Yeah, you guys are trying to say that I'm checking trail cameras too often.
No, I'm not.
But you're trying to say something that's not true. You're trying to say that I do it every 3-4 days.
Said that you check,
and I don't do that.
You do check the ones at your house way more than 5 days.
I check the one that is at the feeder, and if I go to the feeder, the one that's in the next field right there.
No one's saying that there's an issue with it.
Okay.
All we're saying is we're bringing up the fact of the frequencies of checking that and how that affects the deer. So nobody's saying that you shouldn't do that or you can't do that.
I don't care what we're saying. All I want to make sure is the facts that we're stating are correct.
All right, so we'll state these facts right here. Every 5 days would be the most
a week,
check it.
7.
Okay.
No, I mean
now we're going to 7 days.
I believe
5 or 7.
I had to check like normal cameras that aren't right next to my house. Just judging from
once a week, because that's when you.
So there's 11 days right there between camera checks.
Okay.
And there's 11 days, and there's 12 days.
The parameters here. Are you afraid to check them very frequently?
No.
Okay. Are you afraid to check them frequently, or do you like to leave them be?
It depends on the
Where you
time
put
of
'em.
year and the place.
Where you put them is
I don't care either way. If I'm there, I'll check it. If I'm not there, I won't check it. If I want to go out to the farm, I'll go check it. It does not matter the time of year. And I don't have any issues with it at all. But granted, I don't put them where you guys put some of your stuff deep in bedding areas. And I
don't
where
check,
you put a
and I
step cam.
yeah.
But I don't, I keep all my stuff where they're going to be going to or coming from. So
Which
I don't have to
honestly,
worry about
though,
it.
those ones never really helped us that much until last year, because we never really used cell cams until last year. So, and everything in bedding we were leaving most of the time.
And I'm still not a big fan of cell cams.
I think that has to be one of the best benefits, though, is if you wanted to put it somewhere.
Absolutely. If there's certain places, or if for those guys that don't live near where they hunt, 100%. I mean, now they can check a cell camera. I mean, check their trail camera by not having to go anywhere.
Yep.
You know.
So the premise, though, is does checking your trail camera often hurt your ability to kill that deer or a deer, or does it improve it? Or does it depend on the location or depend on the time of year? Which obviously, as everybody knows, that is a hunter. There's a lot of factors here, but I think we should go into a couple of them, because I think that you do one. I still don't believe you on 5 days, but that's beside the point.
There.
That's beside the point.
They're showing you.
I do think that the way that you train your deer at your house is smart, because I do think that I think it's no different than a farmer that recognizes somebody and they get used to you being there.
I think that's exactly how you killed Bully. Actually, we know that's how you killed Bully.
No, that deer didn't live. We hadn't lived there that long.
No, but you knew.
No, but we did drive the tractor.
Down.
Yeah,
you said go.
Act like
a rut.
Yeah, act like a farmer. Yes, that was 100%. That's exactly. I mean, for people that haven't seen that episode, I mean, that was 100% legit.
So what
we get out of the stand. He says, "Just drive the tractor down there and set the stand." And me and Warren are like, "Nope, you're an idiot.
Yeah,
there's no way we're doing that."
East and I had seen a bunch of deer that morning, probably 4 or 5 different bucks. One buck that was a really good deer, and I can't remember, how did we know that he was in there? There was
we saw him bed down.
You guys saw 4 or 5 bucks go down in there. We knew the land enough to know we couldn't hunt across the fence at that time, and we knew that's the bedding area, so they got to be in there close.
Right. So we went back at lunch, told Dad this, and so we were contemplating, I think, just sitting in the same stand.
We were going to try, yeah.
And he's like, well, let's just go hang a stand in there. And it was November 10th, because I killed a bunch of deer on that day, and East and I are like, no way. There's absolutely not. That's stupid. We're going to bust that deer. There's no way we could do that. And I can't remember how you finally convinced us to do it. But
I think we finally just accepted the fact that he wasn't going to give up on it, and we're like, screw it, we'll just.
Oh yeah, it was a fight the whole time that you guys did not want to do it. Right up until I'm up in the tree, and I hear you guys talking to your mother, who is telling her, because I'd already told her, if they don't hunt it, we will. And Mom doesn't necessarily. She agreed with me because she doesn't know the difference. She was like, if you think that's a good, I'm telling you right now, we're not going to bust a single deer. We're going to be fine. And so
what we did is pulled the tractor in there.
Yeah, with all the stands and everything in the bucket of the tractor.
Yeah, not quite right into the bedding area, but within probably 200 yards of it.
All right, they're hanging out wherever we watched them run to.
Yeah, and then hung the stand.
And then
with the tractor.
And then left the tractor running until you guys ran up and got your clothes on, because I've never seen either of you run that fast ever again, but you thought you were going to lose your stand. Because
I thought we were in our clothes already.
No, we didn't wear the same clothes. Everyone had changed. So you guys decided you were going to get in the stand, and I waited till you guys were up in the stand, and then Mom and I backed the tractor out.
Yeah, and then it was only like...
And then we hunted about 300 yards from 300 yards from you guys in another stand farther down, just in case. And I heard you shoot.
Yeah, I remember that. And it only took like 30 minutes.
Yeah, it was
like 30 minutes. Here comes the doe, and then he follows her 13 yards. It was the easiest shot ever.
We ate our words on that one pretty good.
Yeah, it's all right, though. It was a 150-inch deer, so that makes it worth it.
I mean,
more like 158, wasn't he?
No, because he's like a
6 point. Yeah, I mean, it's a giant deer, so... And that was kind of like that was your first icebreaker for Iowa, I think, like killing a big deer. You killed the one
that
the
8
year
to me
before.
Was a big deer.
Yeah.
Because before, when we lived in Montana, when we lived in North,
they were small.
I can't remember how many days you and I spent in a tree, and we saw, I think the buck I killed was the only one that had more than 1 point. Actually, except for the one that him and East and I almost killed.
At Ed's?
Yeah.
That one was, I think we thought was almost over 100.
He was like 110. He was a toad.
He was huge.
Hey, there's probably a lot of people listening to this podcast right now that would pay money to kill a 110-inch deer.
Well, I remember
with a gun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you remember. I was stoked when we killed that deer that I did, and he was like
absolutely.
probably 40. I mean, just a little 8-point, but that was literally the only other buck that I'd seen that had more than a spike.
Well, I don't know. I was in my late 20s before I killed my first Pope and Young deer. I never even saw one until I was.
Living in the D.C. area does not help you very much.
Yeah, where you live but we're getting off topic here. I think we're talking about pressure and pressure versus, and how do you apply pressure? There's an instance where someone could have said, you guys are about to apply, you guys felt like we're going to apply too much pressure and blow everything out.
Yes.
And I felt like that from past experiences with deer and watching them, and where a lot of that came from was Montana, because I used to hunt a guy, his name was Pat, and I hunted his place, and I would see him from my tree stand doing his chores. And there was several days when I would have a buck that was Pope and Young kind of caliber deer, big deer for that area, would just lay there and watch him. And I was like, holy cow, they're not paying any attention to him. I mean, he would drive his tractor within 50 yards of him, picking up hay and taking it over to his cows, and that deer wouldn't even turn around. And so anyhow, so you start to see, it's no different than we've talked a little bit about a human. I believe there's a huge difference in wearing a bright red shirt or a bright colored shirt. It's not so much the color of the clothing that you're wearing as it is your mannerisms. The moment that you become a predator, you start sneaking around and you start doing things a little different, the animals react. When you're totally nonchalant, not paying any attention, making a lot of noise going through the woods rather than trying to be quiet, and then you step on a limb, I believe you're doing more harm than good, because I think sometimes they just don't pay attention to it because if it's something they're used to.
Yeah,
that's
right.
In a spot where you feel like you can control it, though, too. Like somewhere where you feel like you can be there enough to do that.
Absolutely.
I'm not anywhere so where I hunt. I would never be able to be out there enough to make them used to me. And even the farmer that's out there doesn't. I don't think he's around enough to do that either. So like in my circumstance, I try not to bug them
absolutely
as much as I can.
Well, don't get me wrong. I still I've raked away the leaves and the limbs and everything from a field to a stand so that I don't make any noise walking into there. I'll go to great lengths to move stuff around and make sure that we can come in. One of the biggest ones is food plots. I love hunting food plots. I like planting food plots. Entrance and exit of those things can be killer if you don't kill something on the very first day. If you blow them all out of there. And one of the biggest lessons came from the two of you hunting. We on a chunk of ground we call the 80. And remember when I first put that food plot in there that year, and you guys hunted the stand we had down in the bottom, I'll never forget you guys calling me and saying, what do we do? There's 30 deer in the field. I'm like, there can't be 30 deer in that field. Yeah, it is. It's full. There's all kinds of deer.
On the south side?
It was right on the north side, right in the bottom. I don't remember which one of you was the hunter.
Trying to kill that really wide, goofy deer, remember?
Yep.
You almost killed him. But I think that it's so, during the summer, I think that I would be curious to see if pressure is impactful on a big buck during the summer as it is during fall. If they are more relaxed in the summer and they don't know that or they know it's not hunting season, if they're that smart. But we do have places where deer won't eat out of a feeder. And I think that we have pictures of a deer I killed, we called Bullwinkle, literally within like 10 yards of the feeder. And you can tell he's smelling it. And then the next picture is him running off. And we could only get one or two little tiny bucks to eat out of it. And those deer up there are not receptive to pressure at all. So I think that those deer, they have such little human interaction that anything is foreign. And so they aren't willing to do anything at all. Where I think deer around your house or other places where there's more people are willing to tolerate a lot more because they know it's not a threat.
Could be. I just hate to put too much weight on it because we don't know. Is it what I had in the feeder? It was straight corn. Would it have helped if you'd done things a little different?
We put multiple things.
Well, I went and looked at another spot that the one down south. And when I looked at that again, after we talked about this the other day, and you said, that's another place they wouldn't eat out of the feeder. I moved the feeder one time, and I had pictures of the Goofy 8 and a couple other deer at the feeder. So I think sometimes the feeder location can be
Well, we've had that one up there though in 2 different places now.
Yeah, I agree. We've never had them like get them to coming to it, and coming to it often.
But those deer are also weird. I'd say those deer behave different than any other deer that we have for the most part.
Well, I think what we're dealing with there too is a big block of timber.
Yeah.
That's a bigger block of timber than what and when we're talking about a big block of timber for the folks that are listening, we're talking, it's probably over 100 acres, 100 of solid timber, which in Iowa, that reduces the funnel. I mean, now your funnels are a small ridge line, or because it's not. I mean, there is a river there, and then there's agriculture there. But when you have 400 yards or 500 yards of solid timber,
and it's all good,
and it's all the same, it's all roughly the same. You got to look for other ways of forcing those deer through there. But I mean, we were talking about bullwinkle, and we were talking about the pressure. Not necessarily the pressure. I think the deer figured us out. So there's a lot of ways that, are we applying pressure in the summertime and because we're putting trail cameras in? Are we then applying pressure if we're putting food plots in because we're in there and we're clanking around and doing all that? I don't believe those deer leave when they hear that farm equipment. I think they may move off or something like that, but they come back pretty quick.
There's so many farmers, especially in
Absolutely.
Iowa, too, that they don't know what I have no idea how they wouldn't know what a farmer or what some kind of equipment sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, so
the only times I ever see them run from is when they're in the field, when they're like harvesting, they'll run.
But I honestly believe those deer just run into the timber and then stand and watch and see what's going on. Okay, well, that's what, I just need to get out of, I don't want to get run over. Yes. 100%.
See, my deer, though, that is by your guys' northern piece, they don't, I put food blocks out, and they're fine with that, which is only like a mile or two from where they won't eat from a feeder.
Right.
So maybe it's literally just the fact that it's a feeder, something that doesn't smell right. I don't know. Because I'm using just like the food blocks that you guys would put in there, and they hammer it.
Maybe they know it's got metal in it, and it's like plastic water bottles. They know there's bad things in it for them.
Yeah.
I don't think they're that smart.
Eli, do you remember the Big Ten that we saw? Were they combining that day when we saw them, or was that a different day? Remember? Well, remember one day they were combining right next to us. We didn't see him that day, I don't think, did we? Okay, I just couldn't remember.
But you guys did see base drop the day after they picked the corn.
Yeah.
Because I was there the day before.
Well, we saw deer that night, too. Just not the deer that we were looking for. And that was within probably 30 minutes of the...
Well, that alone right there is something that we should probably answer for people, because I do feel like we have some knowledge, and that is, unless they're picking or cutting or whatever you want, whatever they're doing to your bean field or cornfield right in front of you, where a deer can't be there because they might run them over, doesn't bother me a bit to see that piece of equipment going back and forth. If it's across the field 400 or 500 yards, I'll still sit in my stand. I'm not moving and going somewhere else because they're used to it.
Yeah.
Now if that guy breaks down...
Or if you can be there when they leave, like if they finish up.
Yeah.
So they finished. That's what we did at Shorty.
Yep.
I think I killed a deer right after he pulled out of there and was done harvesting. And he was harvesting while we were sitting in the stand.
Yep.
And once he pulled out, we killed one.
So do you think that most people, here's an interesting question on the topic of pressure. Do you think that most guys give deer too much credit? Or... Yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. So I think a lot of guys, when they bust a deer one time, they think it's over.
Yeah, you'll never see him again.
He's gone, and I'm never going to find that deer again, and they're just totally heartbroken. Do you think that people are being a little bit too cautious, or do you think most guys, that there are some deer? I think the problem, I think, is that the deer has a lot to do with it. I think some deer are really smart, and in a pressured area, you may be right. I think, if he knows... If you're on public and he's getting hunted a lot and you bump him out of his bed or somewhere that he's comfortable, you might have a really hard time finding that deer again. But I think we have a lot of times where we ran into deer in the field or as we're walking to and from a stand, and you don't like it still, but they haven't left.
I think that it 100% depends on the deer.
I think it depends on the deer as well.
I've seen so many that you can bump them as much as you want, and they... I don't know if they're just not, if they're dumb enough or they just don't care enough, and they'll be back, as opposed to ones we've had them that we have never been able to kill him because we bumped him once. Well, that's granted, they had other issues.
Well, I mean,
wonder, though,
there's extreme cases, okay? And here's where I'll go is think about the pheasant hunter or the quail hunters that you've met that say, do you guys hunt out here in this little waterway or whatever? Because every time our dog goes in there, he jumps a big buck out of there. We've known about this deer for 3-4 years. Okay, they've jumped him more than once. He keeps going back, even though he got run out of there by dogs or people or whatever. He keeps going back because that's a pretty safe place. 300 times he's laid there and hasn't had an issue. One day he does. I believe that they find and he got away safely there. You know, he got out of there. There's only one occasion that I can say that one particular deer that I feel like he reacted in the way that you're talking about, that a lot of, and I don't want to say professional hunters, but guys that spend more than the average time will give these deer a ton of credit. And I don't know if they're giving a ton of credit so that they can take a ton of credit for killing him.
You should take a lot of credit for killing a deer like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but there's a myth too. Everybody will tell you every mature deer is smart. I don't care what it is. If you kill a big mature deer, you outsmarted him. Well, some of them are stupid. They just get lucky until 5, or they live in the right place.
On the right day when they're just chasing tail.
Yeah,
you'll get them.
Sure. Yes, some deer that get mature are definitely smart, but not all of them. Some of them, we've seen some deer that got to maturity and were just dumb as a rock.
But we've seen one really smart one, and that would be Bullwinkle. And the reason I say that is because we had never had an encounter with that deer that we knew of until, I don't remember what year it was now, 2018 or 19 or whatever it was, when Easton and I saw him. And we see him, you guys go back the next day and hunt where we were talking about. We didn't have a stand where we had seen him, but you guys moved into the closest place that you could be to there, and he walks right up to you, but you don't get a shot at him. What we didn't know at the time was that same day, he ran into the neighbor. And at that point, we did not have one trail camera picture. We did not. This is November 1st. It was either November 1st or October 31st.
We knew him before this, though, correct?
Yeah, no, we knew. And we had pictures of him all the time, just randomly, but we hadn't seen him on the hoof during hunting season. And so now we finally see him one day, 2 days in a row, or 2 out of 3 days. And then the day that, I think it was you and Kyle were in the tree. You guys see him. He doesn't wind you guys, though. But he just went by.
He was just too far up on the hill.
Right. But what we later on found out was he ran into the neighbor on the same day. And I'm not positive that when we left the day before, he didn't know that it was us leaving when we went to McDonald's to get breakfast.
Oh, no, we know when we came back.
Yeah, because we had the most incredible
that one
morning.
Was on me.
So my point being is that after that, though, I can say not one single trail camera photo, not one encounter, for a solid 9 months.
So he had 2 in one day.
Two in the same day, and I think that pushed that deer over the edge. He moved somewhere. He went, because you were pretty sure he was dead.
Yeah, I thought he was dead.
And I was like, he's not dead, because we would have heard about it. One, he was big enough that we thought we would hear about it. Number two,
crazy enough looking buck too. On that.
Yeah, but number 2 was, here we had a deer that had stayed around there, and then we found out all this. It just happened, and he disappeared at that moment. That's what told me he chose to go somewhere. He didn't just.
Well, let's think about this though. So now that we know what we do about Bullwinkle, so what we found out about this deer is that he lived. At least I think he did, that he lived and spent the majority of his time further south on the farm.
Right.
Do you think that he could have just been over there and that was more of his core area, and we just, because we didn't have a camera there or anything, because we weren't paying any attention to that at that time, and he was maybe there the whole time, and we just didn't realize
I'm not saying that he wasn't on the property, but he wasn't coming to the north end anymore.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He stayed away, and the whole thing is he also stayed away from. We probably had 7 cameras running there, and we would capture him on one or the other, probably.
Well, think about
once every 8 or 10 days at least.
Think about 18 though. So 18, which was the year before I killed him, the only camera that we got him on Hardhorn was the one where I killed him in Bullwinkle Bottom, except for we got one at the island. Remember, we got one picture. We were like, holy crap, who's this deer? Because we could just see part of his antler. Side. But other than that, he was not any other camera. Remember that? I don't think there was any other camera that he was on. But you also
killed him like October what?
No, we didn't kill him that year.
Oh, you're talking about 18. That was 18, the year.
So the whole time that he was Hardhorn, because remember I had lots of pictures of him. We got lots of pictures of him in Bullwinkle Bottom, but that was the only place.
And it very well could just be that he moved core area, another buck, because even though he was big, just because the antlers are big on a deer doesn't mean he's the dominant deer. It doesn't mean that he's running the show.
Yeah,
he was smart,
was
though.
he when we had the two busted him twice?
6. Because Warren killed him when he was 8.
So 6. That's pretty old. We've all read it, that as the older they're getting, the less distance they're traveling.
Yeah, their core area shrinks.
So if he got busted, how hard would it for him to have moved 200 yards down to the south where we don't have that many cameras? And he sat there and had a couple 100-yard radius where he was.
Absolutely.
Where he just.
I just wonder if he was there the entire time, like
That's
the
what I'm
whole
saying.
time that.
We just walked right by him.
Yeah.
Going to where we thought we needed to be to try to hunt him.
I wonder if the other thing about him though is, the day I killed him, I do wonder if he's that smart and we just got really lucky because it was super windy that day, if you remember right. And then where he came from was east of us, and the wind was northwest, but it completely died that afternoon, and our thermals were taking it from the east. And then I shot him at 6 yards. So that something we can get into later on the whole with they travel with the wind thing. But so there was another deer at that place at the same time that was super smart. So is there a difference in pressure deer and educated deer, or is pressured and educated the same
Are
thing?
we going to use names? Because we know where the pressure came from that
We better not.
educated
We better not
deer.
name him.
Huh?
We can't.
I love
we
him.
better
He's
not
still
name
a
him.
good friend of the
He's
family.
a great guy,
you know.
but we're not going to embarrass him because
Okay.
he's a scholar, but he's a scholar for the wrong team.
Okay, but let's give people an understanding of what's going on. So we had a new farm to hunt, 400 acre farm.
First, though, is there a difference in education and pressure? Or is
I think so.
What's the difference then?
I think a deer can be intelligent enough to know that there's a threat in general. Educated, I feel like, is you're making mistakes consistently as a hunter or being in there as a hunter, and they're learning those things.
Okay. So pressure, you just say, is them encountering humans.
Threats, typically by humans.
Okay.
I think educated is you're just not doing well as a hunter. You're
I mean,
teaching
if you want to throw another one in there, we have a farm that we hunt that if those deer aren't considered pressured, I don't know what is, because those guys are running those coyote dogs all over that place. Every time I
have
check,
a heck of a hard time killing a deer there.
right? And every time I check a camera, there's maybe a big buck, but there's also dogs somewhere right there. So I agree with Easton. I think educated is they learn. You know, they pick up on something that is consistent, and like whether you enter from the same spot or not, I think a deer can pick up on that and knows. I do believe that these deer, because of the size of that farm that I'm talking about, that when we got it, what we did was we let someone else hunt it. I said, hey, I'll have you hunt this and keep an eye on it, check trail cameras for us, and see what's going on. It's not near my house. It's not near your house. So we needed someone to kind of help look at it. We were hunting it some. And in the course of that, not understanding that this person didn't have a firm understanding of what they were doing, we later found out that they didn't know what it meant to hunt into the, upwind and downwind. We had to explain that.
Which they were actually hunting the correct winds. They just didn't know that they were hunting.
Yeah, because they were doing a double negative, and so it was working as a positive. But anyhow, when this person is telling me that they've encountered a deer that's 2 feet wide, another deer that's 2 feet tall, and they're really heavy and all this, and multiple encounters with these deer. And then when we go to hunt it, we're noticing that these deer, we are seeing them on trail camera, but yet we're not seeing them when we did see them.
Find them anywhere.
Well, no, but when we did see them, they are randomly looking in trees, which I think if we were to talk to all the people out there in podcast land listening to this, if they live in the south or the east, they'll tell you that those deer look up.
Right.
And I do believe that there's enough pressure there from tree stands that those deer have, because I used to live there, I used to hunt there, and the deer would come out and look up in a tree, where I don't think the deer in Iowa, maybe they do on public ground, most of the private ground, these deer aren't checking trees.
I moved a couple stands.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Due to some help on that
Okay.
one of people sitting in my stand.
Yeah.
They look at I don't bust deer very often at all, especially because I hunt alone. And when I get in a stand and all of a sudden a deer just looks up at me out of nowhere, there's something wrong. But so I have them.
Well, the perfect example was the big deer that me and you should have killed on this farm. And he looked up to this day, there's no reason for that deer to have, we hadn't hunted that stand. No one had been in there. yes, you had grunted at him.
Well,
you know.
where he was at was also like at the time was probably 40 feet below us.
Yeah.
Because we were up on the hill and he was down in a creek bottom.
What year was that?
2016, I think.
16? Mm-hmm. Well, because then he did the exact same thing to me.
Yeah.
The next year. Exact same thing.
Yeah, just, you know, and what we're describing there
In
is
a different place.
Yeah, deer walking through the trees, got their head down. They got that look in their eye like I'm going somewhere, which is going to come right across in front of you 25 yards or less. And all of a sudden they just stop and look up. And this deer did that. I mean, and so the first thing, you know, not there, we both froze and like, oh my gosh, what's going on? He doesn't know we're here. He can't. It was enough that he could recognize something was in that tree. Even though he was in line with us, we weren't silhouetted at all.
Yeah.
It was enough that he wasn't going to take that chance, and he trotted off.
That one was a hang-on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was 2 hang-ons. Yep. And then when we went back, and we both thought, you must have moved.
Yeah, I was like, I know I didn't move. And I said, you had to have moved. And he's like, I didn't move at all.
Well, you can see from the camera that I'm not moving, and you can hear.
Probably farted. That's probably what
we have plenty of experience.
This is about pressure, isn't it?
Up.
I thought we were talking about pressure.
Yeah.
I think that you should take
the amount of deer that you have lifted their heads in a field from ripping.
That's something to be proud of.
There was only one, and it was. My God, the most impressive thing I've ever seen.
That was like me too. There's a doe like 200 yards out.
No, this one was 100 yards. No way, 200.
Yeah, not 200.
It was all the way
wasn't
across
that
the
far.
field.
His was far. 100, 150, 125 yards. Yeah, that one was impressive.
I couldn't even be mad. I'm pretty sure I said that. I was like, that's honestly just impressive. Like, holy crap.
So, but now I don't even remember what we were talking about because we were talking about, but,
we were blaming each other.
I knew you hadn't moved because I would have heard you with your mic on if you even shuffled at all.
You had the camera that had both of us in the
GoPro,
right.
yeah.
And so nobody moved, and he just picked us off, and I believe that deer had learned from other pressure to check things, anything that was out of the ordinary. He didn't just like barge in. He was going to check things, and it proved to save his life because how many times ended up seeing him over the course of the next 2 years and couldn't get close to him.
Yeah, there was one time I should have killed him, and we did get my camera guy got busted, and he also was just a hypersensitive deer. We had the 2 does in front of us at 15 yards, and he was on a line. But that was the 6th. Dude, either the 6th or the 7th encounter I'd had with him that year, and he'd busted me like 2 other times. So couldn't a deer get so educated that he knows where stands are and checks the stands when you're not there?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I'm telling you that I move them. If I have one,
but I think Warren
yards, they won't notice it.
But you just answered a question that we were talking about before. That's proof positive that you encountered that deer 6 or 7 times on the same farm.
Yeah, and he
had known you were there in a different stand, maybe not all of them, but a couple times. But he didn't leave. He just started to adjust how he was working around them.
Yep, and all the ones that I almost killed him out of were new stands because I pulled the one
they were there.
Yeah,
that's where I think your hang and hunt guys do have a huge benefit.
Yeah,
that even if it's simply moving to a tree, well, and the same farm. Remember the one-eyed deer that Mom shot at 8 yards? The old deer, that came walking down the trail. The very first buck we killed up there.
I didn't realize he had one eye.
Yeah, he was blind in one eye.
Oh,
that's the only way she got a shot because he couldn't see it.
Deer for Mom.
Yeah, he was actually blind on the other side. But anyhow, when he came down that trail, we had moved that stand about 8 yards because they were picking us off when they came over the hill. And he walked down looking, didn't see anything, kept on coming. She shoots him at 8 yards. And so I do believe that was the first time we'd hunted that stand since moving it, and he didn't know. You know, he's like you're talking about, you climb in a tree for the first time. That's where I do think that people that talk about first time, you know, your first time to hunt a stand is your best chance of killing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So I hate him, though. I hate hunting first time.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
So here, this is a really interesting question then. So obviously we know that a deer or hunting somewhere that's pressured where they're not used to deer, you have to be a little more careful because they're not used to humans being there. So
they're not used to humans, not deer. They're not used to deer. If they're not used to deer, we got a major issue.
Yeah.
So somewhere where you've been intentionally applying pressure to them and checking trail cameras and you're around there all the time, what's the difference then when you're in a tree? Do you think that you get away with more, or do you think that they understand when, okay, now it's that scent is coming from something, even though I recognize that scent, it's, you know, being here longer than usual. I don't hear any other activity around. There's nothing else going on. Do they get nervous, or do they just say, oh, that's David, and they just keep going?
No, I think there's definitely, like, when the farmer,
what's the differentiator then?
Because I think that they are cognizant enough to pay attention to that area, whether they're looking, we don't see them, but they see us and what we're doing. Yeah, they've identified that's a human being. Okay, and then that's what okay, now I just need to keep my distance. I think when you are sitting in a stand and they're coming through, one, you've penetrated probably into an area that they aren't used to running into you. You know, most of what we're talking about is the farmer doing work. Even the stand we talked about hanging with the tractor, it was only 100 yards from, not even that, 75 yards probably from the edge of the field.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't see a farmer down in that thicket. You know, and all of a sudden when there's a human being's odor down there and it's there the whole time, and I think that's where, and that's a whole different topic, that your scent control, how you approach, how you're going to get there, how you're going to get out, you know, you need to figure out what you think the deer is going to do, and then you need to play that accordingly. You have to assume that they're educated. You know, you have to assume that I mean, no matter how dumb I think a deer is, I'm going to treat him like he's the smartest deer I've ever hunted.
It's a good way to go about it.
And pray for stupid deer.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would rather, no, when you sit down behind that deer and you take your picture, no one ever said, oh, look, he killed a dumb one.
Yeah. Old Floppy Tongue is probably the smartest one out of them all.
And it's a doe.
Genius.
Yeah. She's smarter than me.
Well, you passed her. You should have shot her.
Well, I didn't know.
I can't believe you even got a shot at her.
Because
She didn't know you were there, right?
I'm the superior hunter in this group, okay? That's why I got a shot at her.
I see that. No one ever seen him in the picture either and went, ooh, look, that guy's really smart. He's the superior one there.
And she's at 20 yards.
So I guess
it's easy to kill deer when your IQ is the same level.
So is the
Think like them.
Is the pressure?
Think like them.
Okay.
Have we answered the question for people that is pressure bad or is it good or does it matter or it depends?
I think it depends.
It depends, and everybody's probably got a different opinion on it.
And it's going to be preference. It's going to be what your farm is like. It's going to be how many people are on your farm or public. It's going to, or if there's nobody on it whatsoever, how often you're going to be in there. There's tons of variables to go into it.
100%.
I would say that the best thing you could do is if you have the ability to pick one, no pressure would be the best, because you get those deer in a completely natural state where you can find their patterns during the summers, see where they're hanging out, find their bedding areas. You don't have to worry about trying to decide if they're going to react a certain way to something and go completely undetected hunting.
Sure.
I think that would be the best way to do it.
But you have probably the best story of pressure and how that affects a mature deer, solid 5-year-old deer, and that's you and Alyssa walking in 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, walk across the food plot and the deer's already there.
Yeah.
Sees you, leaves. You text me and say, we just bumped him. Hour later, you're texting me, she just killed him.
Yep.
And he came right back in the same food plot. A lot of things contribute to that. The rut was going on. Food plot was pretty good that year. They wanted to be there. But the other thing was, from what I understand, you guys marched across that thing like you owned the place. You didn't slow down. You weren't trying to get a shot at him in the field, sneaking where he finally throws a fit. You guys just said, let's just go on over and get in the blind.
Yep. We were walking down that hill because it was early. I mean, it was like 2:30, but it was 70-some degrees. So I wasn't that concerned about being really early because it was so hot. I was like, surely it won't make that big of a difference because it is so warm. And we start going down the food plot, and I could see a doe out there. So I told her to stop, and we're looking, and I look over the right, and I see a pretty good buck, and I managed to get my binoculars on him, and it's get up. And I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And he's standing there looking, and then I see 2 other does, and so I told her, I said, come on, and we just beelined. We already pegged, so we just walked across the food plot, just casually, didn't act like we were hiding or anything, and then it was within like an hour. She shot him. He actually came so close to the blind that I thought we weren't going to get a shot because he was literally too close to be able to shoot. And then he walked out like 15 yards and she shot him.
And so that's an area that I don't go all the time. I can't get in there all the time. So I'm not there with the tractor. I'm not there at the four-wheeler daily. But he was just, I believe that you guys killed him from the decision you made when he saw you. And that is no big deal.
Yeah. So too, I can honestly say that I think if I was in that situation, I wouldn't have done that. And I bet I wouldn't have killed him.
You probably would have sat down on your knees and been like, let me let him calm down.
And just watch to see what they're going to do and hope that they calm down. And if I could get them to calm down, hope that they meander somewhere where I can sneak into the blind or something. And I think that would have, at some point, I was probably going to bust him anyways.
Yep.
And yeah, that is interesting. That shows a lack of the experience level of, I don't know if it's experience. I wouldn't even thought of that.
That's just what I felt like I should do. But to what you said on hunting a place that has absolutely no pressure, the problem that I could see you having with that is then the one time that your wind switches or they detect humans at all, are they going to freak out for a way longer time period? Because the only study I have to this is I had a trail camera up on a place that was public this year, but it was a really, really deep spot, so there wasn't many people going in there. I had a cell cam on it, and there was more than one good buck hitting it every single day. 140 plus inch deer. They weren't all, I can't say they were all real mature deer, but 3, 4, and 5-year-old deer. And there was a buck hitting that at least one every single day during daylight, in the morning or in the afternoon. Then the last 2 days before this, what happened, there was, I had 3 to 4 different bucks hitting it all during daylight. In the morning, 2 days in a row, like 4 or 5 bucks there. There was all kinds of bucks hitting this scrape in early October. Then I went in there and hunted it and couldn't find a deer. Didn't see anything. I was like, what the heck? And so I started walking around, and I've cut boot tracks right by where I set up. And those boot tracks, I can't remember how I was able to determine, but somehow I was able to know that it was within a day that this person had been through there. And then I just looked at my camera, and I didn't get any pictures for 5 days. Not one of those bucks came back and hit that scrape for 5 days. And then after that 5-day period of nobody else being in there, then there was one of those bucks there again every single day. And I have a hard time believing that was just a coincidence. So that's 5 days. Not one of them.
And that would be.
Yeah, but why would my point with the saying that if you could find a spot that's not pressured at all, is the hopes would be you're the only person there.
Yeah, well, and I think that's great. I'm just saying.
If make sure you're not making any mistakes, you can't control the wind, obviously. So if the wind were to switch or something like that, yeah, you run the risk of them smelling you or something. But I also don't think that I don't think that the wind solely, something like, how many different variables are there? If there's no pressure whatsoever, and you did all your stuff right, you get in your stand, and the only variable you have that could possibly royally screw them up would be the wind, do you think it's going to mess them up that much? Or is it going to be like, oh, what's that? I don't like it. I'm going to go somewhere else. I think they'd stay around.
I don't know. I just don't like what you're describing there is something that a public land guy is not going to have any control over, and that is you find it, you scout a place, you do everything you can, you're clean, you take care of it, you're not going in there, you put a cellular camera so you don't have to check it, you're seeing your deer, and someone else comes through there and
well, in that point, there's no point in doing it that way.
Exactly. But so my point, my thought is with what the deer that you're describing there is that person ended up in an area that those deer were not used to having anyone in there.
It was way back there.
Yeah. And so they reacted.
And it was like right on the core of the edge of a bedding area. So, right. And this person, I'm pretty positive they went right dead smack through the bedding area. Because I was getting pictures of most of these deer at like 9 a.m. 8:30, 9 a.m.
Yep. So, you're introducing something. I agree with you, Easton. If it could be, here's what I guess my question. We know of mistakes we make, right? We jump a deer, we see him run off, we see a trail camera picture, and then we don't see him. How many mistakes do we make that we don't know? How many deer do we walk by that we don't know about? How many deer do we're in an area that never walked in front of a trail camera, and then, we screwed it up? Probably 10 times more than what we physically know. It's like if you see 5 deer in a day, how many actually were within 100 yards of you? Probably a lot more than that.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's only so much credit that you can give them. They still have to live out there. And so I mean, maybe I'm one of those guys that doesn't give them enough credit. That's okay. I'm killing 5+ year-old deer, and that's what I'm after. And I'm doing it on a consistent basis, and I hope that I'll continue to do that. So one of the things that I will tell anyone out there listening, the thing that's going to help you kill deer more than anything is time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Spend the time. You're going to spend enough time. I honestly believe there's a lot of deer that have finally just said, okay, we're drawing straws and someone's going to walk in front of him, because he keeps coming back day after day. And unless we want to have a day without him here, one of us is going to have to take one for the team.
Yeah, I'm sure they think that clearly.
So whoever draws the short,
send the biggest.
So whoever drew the short straw, is who gets shot that day. No, it just takes time.
I wish it was that easy. I'd be paying them off.
Yeah, me too.
Here, get that one to go by.
The great thing about it is that with that time, if you'll pay attention, you're learning a ton. Just like you're talking about experience, Warren walking across the field in the middle of the day after seeing a 5-year-old buck out there in the middle of the day. Now I would tell him, because I remember telling him when he was going there to go early. I know it was 70 degrees, but I know where that food plot is and how it sits. Another one, that we use that food plot for is when on a windy day. Yeah. There's like no better place to be. You can get out of the wind down there, and you go in there, and there's piles of deer. When everyone else is like wind where you can't even hunt from a tree stand somewhere else, you can go sit in a tree stand down there, and it's okay. And the deer are acting normal, and they're up.
And that does seem to be pretty consistently accurate for lots of places.
Mm-hmm.
It's really windy. If you can get out of the wind, the deer will be there.
Yep.
I think as long as there's food there, it makes it even better too.
Yeah.
Well, that
one has food and out of the wind.
Yeah, as long as they were able to,
bedding.
As long as the wind's blowing in the right direction, that they could get there from wherever they were, because they're only going to walk with their nose in the wind from. So we get a lot of deer from.
Getting to that next.
Well, we get a lot of deer from Indiana, Illinois, that because they are only going to walk with a west wind.
Holder.
They're all cross country.
Stop now.
Well, I just don't believe that theory.
Explain.
I do.
That's another topic. We'll get into.
Yeah.
So I think pressure, I agree with you guys. I think that what we're trying to say is
That's why they had gone for 7 days now. Now we know. Now we know why Bullwinkle was gone for 9 months, because he was stuck with an east wind.
He's like, I just want to go back home, man.
Yeah, he's like, freaking Denver? What the heck?
Oh, finally the wind switched. All right, let's go back.
So, no, there's just lots of, there's too many variables, and I think that I hate to see you read articles, you see podcasts or hear podcasts, you see television shows, and everyone's trying to say, this is it. This is the only way that it can be done. And that's not true. It doesn't fit. And the guy that has to work 5 days a week and hunts on the weekends, he's got to do it a little bit different than the guy that can hunt 2 days during the week and he's off or he works over the weekend. In my opinion, that guy's got a way better opportunity, because I still say that Wednesdays and Thursdays, that's my day to kill deer. Less pressure from everyone, meaning, and I don't mean as in pressure, but like there's not people out walking their dog. There's not people out chainsawing. How many people have been sitting in a tree stand or in a blind, and the next door neighbor is doing something goofy on a Saturday or Sunday that on Wednesday and Thursday you wouldn't have seen that?
Yep.
So pressure means different things in different places.
This would be an interesting topic to cover with elk at some point.
I have a different theory on them. They don't stand for anything.
That's what I was going to say. Is I think most time elk are like,
that'd be a pretty quick talk.
Gone. I don't think you could ever even get them accustomed to it unless they were like lived in Colorado in a town or something. They'll never tolerate a person being around enough to get used to it. They're just person gone.
Yeah, just walk away and get as far away as we possibly can.
So basically, there's more than one way to skin the cat to kill a big deer or mature deer, with pressure or not.
I think so. I think there's lots of ways. And so, I would encourage people, if you have got a question about that, ask us. We'll try to answer it.
Or if you don't agree with us.
Yeah, you don't agree.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, we have the ability of bringing people on where we can talk to you on a conference call or a phone call.
We'll have a conference call about this and consult you on while we're wrong or while you're wrong. One of the two.
I'll be very professional.
Yes.
Well, we would be totally unprofessional if we didn't invite other people to have an opinion.
Oh,
We want to know.
And that we would also not learn near as much. If I walked into the woods every day after 40-some years of deer hunting and thought, I know it all by now, you're missing it, because I'm probably learned more in the last 2 years than I have in the first 40. And that's probably been, I could probably make that statement all the way back until I was in my teens.
we taught that. And so when I just say we're going to tell you how that, I'm totally joking, because I think that we told this to those kids, or they weren't kids, adults that we taught at Field to Fork this past summer, that they were asking us tons of questions about deer hunting. What about this? What about that? Because the wind to them is like a foreign thing. They don't think about that. These were all new hunters. And we told them, I remember telling them, that you're going to find that there's like 10% of basic things when it comes to deer hunting that every deer hunter will experienced deer hunter is going to tell you need to do. And then after that, 90% of it is all opinions. And they were kind of, blown away by that, but it really is, because there's so many different factors and there's so much information that we don't have to be able to actually say, yes, this is for sure why this is happening, or no, that there's just no way to tell.
And what you always taught us too, which I will probably always stand by, unless you have some crazy piece of land where you can control them a heck of a lot better, you're hunting a wild animal. They're
100%.
always going to do, they'll never do the same thing twice.
And that's what makes it so fun. And that's why we've never done anything in a pen. I don't care how big the pin is. I think it has, and I'm not against people that want to do that. I just don't consider it hunting. You went and shot something.
Yep.
Now the one place that would be different, I think, is Africa. A few foreign places where they're enclosing to keep things out rather than keep things in. But for the most part, I mean, wild animals are wild animals, and as much as we think we know them, there can be one that does something we ain't expecting at any time. And that's what makes it so. It's not just fun. It's way more beyond fun, or we wouldn't be doing podcasts about it. You don't see us in here talking about baking or knitting or anything like that. You see us talking about,
Hey man, that's fun stuff too.
interacting. Yeah, but we don't find it that fun.
That's valid.
So we're talking about what we are super passionate about, and if we can't learn from every time we go out, every time that we encounter something, I still want to know why the doe had a fawn next to my garage. And then he associated buildings with a safe place. I mean, he was laying around our door all the time, and it's like,
Was he in the shade?
I don't know. I think it was the concrete was cool.
Yeah, I would do that if I was a baby deer and it was super hot.
Yeah, but you would think when the garage door opens that it might not be the best place to, be laying. So,
Well, if there's one thing though I would pull from this, I would rather hunt a pressured deer versus an educated deer. That's what
I think I'd agree with that statement.
too.
Yeah, because then I'm already at an advantage because I'm pressured the moment that I step out of my truck.
Yeah, but the educated ones, they get you freaking
can
pegged.
fix it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So, if someone kills an educated one, send me a picture. I want to see where does he have his.
So that could be something really controversial.
What?
Really controversial, maybe. That's a hard word to say. So
Clearly, you just said it
are
twice.
killing
Two
are
different
killing
ways.
urban deer easier to kill than rural deer?
I don't know.
Because they're around people all the time. Does your scent matter as much? They're used to people. Do they?
Well, I hunted a ton of them. The only problem is that was
Well, maybe we should just let
over
people.
25 years
70 or 80
ago.
years ago.
Yeah, that's when it was.
That's when dirt was
Give us
getting
your
made,
opinions
man.
on that, because I'll be curious to see what people think on that. I haven't hunted enough urban deer to really be able to
I've never hunted an urban
make a
deer.
statement on that, but I'm just considering factors that seem as though they could play a role.
I tend to lean toward it was easier, only because you had less to work with, because houses funneled, roads funneled. You push these deer into a small pocket area.
I couldn't. You really think your wind would matter? Some of this stuff. But at the same time, you're talking. If you're in people's backyards, where I saw a lot of these videos, they're 50 yards from people's backyards. If those deer were running every time they smelled a person, they would never be there.
Right. But again, you're talking about that scent that is sitting perfectly still, not moving. It's sitting, and it's in a place where it's not coming from the swing set.
But how many
it's
people are sitting on the backyard smoking a cigarette?
Well,
or
it depends on the urban hunt you're talking about. How close are we in proximity?
Like,
you know,
a lot of them are close.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys that have shot deer and they've fallen dead under the swing set or next to the deck.
Yeah.
You know, so.
That'd be interesting. Be an interesting one to cover.
We'll have to do that next time.
We need a urban expert on that one.
I ain't that one.
I know a couple guys that do a lot of urban hunting.
Well, maybe we'll bring them in.
Okay. All right. So as we said before, this is the Raised No Name podcast. So thank you for listening again. And if there's anything that you want to cover or you want us to cover, or just a comment that you want to make, shoot us an email to raisedoutdoors.com or raisedhunting.com, either one. Or shoot us a message on our social media pages. It's getting closer. I mean, I've already seen people counting down. Certain states they're down to like 61 days and stuff because a lot of seasons open September 1st. So it's right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.